stop scrolling. This message will decide the rest of your life. Every second you wait, someone else is taking what could have been yours. If you ignore this, you will look back and hate yourself. Pay attention, because the clock is running and it doesn't care about excuses. Most people don't fail loudly, they fail quietly. There is no dramatic collapse, no sudden disaster. Instead, life slips through their fingers, one delayed decision at a time. They tell themselves they are waiting for the right moment, the right mood, the right conditions. But while they wait, opportunities expire. Delay is not harmless. It is a slow, invisible thief that steals momentum, confidence, and eventually belief in oneself. Every time you postpone an important action, your mind records it. You may forget the exact moment, but your subconscious does not. It remembers every promise you made to yourself and didn't keep. Over time, those broken promises create a pattern, and that pattern becomes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who acts and start seeing yourself as someone who intends. And intentions without execution produce nothing. Delay feels safe because it protects you from discomfort in the moment. Action demands effort, uncertainty, and risk. Delay offers temporary relief. But that relief comes at a cost. The longer you wait, the heavier the task feels. What could have been simple becomes overwhelming. What could have been done in days starts to feel like it will take years. Delay doesn't just pause progress, it multiplies resistance. People often believe they are standing still, but there is no such thing as standing still in life. You are either moving forward or falling behind. While you hesitate, the world keeps moving. Skills decay, confidence weakens, windows close. Someone else is doing the thing you keep postponing, not because they are more talented, but because they decided to move before they felt ready. One of the most dangerous lies delay tells is that time is abundant. Time feels unlimited when you are young or comfortable, but it becomes brutally limited when you need it most. The future arrives faster than expected, and when it does, it demands results, not intentions. You cannot explain to life what you meant to do. Life only responds to what you did. Delay also trains you to trust your excuses more than your potential. You begin to justify inaction with logic that sounds reasonable. You tell yourself you need more information, more resources, more confidence. But confidence does not come from thinking, it comes from doing. Information does not create momentum, execution does. Most people don't need another plan. They need to honor the plan they already have. Each delayed decision weakens your internal authority. When you repeatedly ignore your own instincts, you teach yourself that your word doesn't matter. That is a dangerous habit, because success requires self-trust. If you don't trust yourself to act, you will hesitate even when the opportunity is obvious. Over time, this hesitation becomes automatic and regret becomes familiar. Delay also distorts perception. The longer you wait, the more you magnify the difficulty of the task and minimize your ability to handle it. Fear grows in the absence of action. Courage, on the other hand, only appears after movement. You don't eliminate fear by waiting, you eliminate it by confronting it. Action shrinks fear, delay feeds it. At some point, delay turns into disappointment. You start wondering why your life hasn't changed, even though you keep thinking about change. The gap between where you are and where you want to be grows wider, and crossing it feels harder. That gap was created not by lack of ability, but by lack of timely action. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. The life you want requires decisions you are avoiding. The version of you that succeeds is on the other side of actions you keep postponing. Delay is not neutral. It is a decision against your future made quietly, daily, and repeatedly. When you understand, this urgency becomes natural and action becomes necessary. Comfort is seductive because it disguises itself as safety. It whispers that there is no rush, no danger, no real consequence to staying where you are. It tells you that rest is the same as stagnation and that ease is wisdom. But comfort is not neutral. It is a choice, and every choice has a cost. The only difference is when the cost is collected. Comfort always feels affordable in the present. Skipping the hard conversation, avoiding the difficult task, delaying the disciplined routine, none of these seem expensive in the moment. In fact, they feel relieving. You get to avoid discomfort, effort, and uncertainty. But comfort works like a loan with hidden interest. You borrow ease from today, and tomorrow demands repayment with consequences. Discipline, on the other hand, feels costly up front. It requires sacrifice, focus, and consistency. It demands that you say no to short-term pleasure in exchange for long-term progress. That trade feels painful because the reward is delayed. But discipline is honest. It shows you the price immediately and delivers the benefit later. Comfort hides the price and delivers the pain when you can least afford it. People often misunderstand freedom. They believe freedom comes from having no pressure, no structure, no demands. In reality, freedom comes from mastery, and mastery only comes through discipline. The person who avoids discipline becomes a prisoner of circumstances, reacting instead of leading. The person who embraces discipline gains options, leverage, and control over their life. Comfort trains you to seek relief instead of results. When stress appears, you escape. When resistance shows up, over time, this pattern rewires your brain to associate growth with pain and avoidance with safety. But growth has always required discomfort. Every upgrade in life demands a new level of effort, and every refusal to grow quietly shrinks your world. One of the most dangerous aspects of comfort is how reasonable it sounds. You tell yourself you deserve a break, that you've already done enough, that you'll push harder later. And sometimes rest is necessary. But comfort becomes a problem when rest turns into a lifestyle. When later becomes your favorite word and ease becomes your default setting, progress stops. Life does not punish people for choosing comfort immediately. It waits. It allows comfort to build momentum. And then one day, the consequences arrive all at once. Health issues appear after years of neglect. Financial pressure shows up after years of avoidance. Regret surfaces after years of delay. By then, the cost is far greater than the original effort ever would have been. Discipline pays differently. Its rewards are quiet at first. Small improvements, slight confidence, gradual momentum, nothing dramatic. But over time, discipline compounds. What was once difficult becomes natural. What required effort becomes habit. And eventually, what felt like sacrifice turns into strength. Comfort never compounds in your favor. It only compounds weakness. The longer you choose it, the harder it becomes to leave it. You lose tolerance for discomfort, patience for effort, and belief in your ability to push through. That is why breaking out of comfort later feels so overwhelming. You're not just starting late, you're starting weaker. The truth is, everyone pays a price. There is no life without cost. You either pay in effort now or in regret later. You either face discomfort on your terms or face consequences on life's terms. The difference is timing, and timing changes everything. When you understand this, discipline stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like strategy. You realize that choosing discomfort today is not self-denial, it is self-respect. And once you see comfort for what it truly is, you stop asking how to avoid pain and start choosing which pain leads to freedom. Most people believe their problem is confusion. They think they don't know enough, don't have enough clarity, or don't have the full picture yet. But confusion is rarely the real issue. The truth is, you already know far more than you are willing to act on. The gap in your life is not between ignorance and knowledge, it is between knowledge and execution. You know the habit that is costing you progress. You know the conversation you've been avoiding. You know the skill that would change your income, your confidence, or your future if you committed to it. Yet, instead of moving, you wait. You wait for certainty, for confidence, for permission. But certainty never arrives before action. It only shows up after you move. Information feels productive because it is comfortable. Learning gives the illusion of progress without the risk of failure. You can read, watch, plan, and prepare endlessly while staying safe from judgment and discomfort. But preparation without execution is just procrastination wearing a respectable outfit. At some point, learning becomes a way to hide. Clarity is not a prerequisite for action. Action is the prerequisite for clarity. When you take a step, even a small one, reality responds. Feedback appears, direction sharpens. What was once vague becomes obvious. But when you stay still, your mind fills the silence with doubt, overthinking, and imagined obstacles that grow larger the longer you avoid them. Fear often disguises itself as logic. You tell yourself you're being careful, strategic, or responsible, but underneath those words is the same hesitation that has kept you stuck before. Fear does not disappear when you analyze it. It disappears when you confront it. And confrontation only happens through movement. Waiting also creates a dangerous habit of outsourcing responsibility. You look to circumstances, people, or timing to validate your next move. You want the environment to feel right before you act. But environments don't change first, people do. When you change your behavior, the environment adjusts. Power comes from acting without perfect conditions. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing confidence leads to action. It doesn't. Action leads to confidence. Every time you do something difficult, you prove something to yourself. That proof builds belief. That belief fuels the next action. But when you wait to feel confident first, you trap yourself in a cycle that never starts. There's also a cost to waiting that few people consider. The longer you delay, the more emotionally attached you become to the idea of success without the experience of struggle. You imagine a version of yourself who succeeds effortlessly. Then, when reality demands effort, the contrast feels discouraging. Starting earlier would have made the discomfort smaller and the adjustment easier. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a starting point. Plans evolve. Skills sharpen. Direction adjusts. But none of that happens in theory. It happens in motion. Progress is messy. Growth is uncomfortable. But stagnation is far more painful in the long run because it slowly erodes your self-respect. Every day you wait, you reinforce the belief that action is optional. And beliefs shape behavior. If action is optional, then excuses are acceptable. And if excuses are acceptable, results are optional too. That is not the mindset that builds a meaningful life. The truth is simple. You are not stuck because you don't know what to do. You are stuck because you haven't done what you already know. The moment you stop waiting for clarity and start acting on what is obvious, momentum begins. And momentum has a way of revealing answers that thinking alone never could. Your life is a reflection of what you tolerate. Every choice, every habit, every standard you accept becomes a mirror of who you are and where you are headed. Low standards produce small results. High standards produce extraordinary outcomes. Yet most people live below their potential because they accept mediocrity without realizing it. They compromise on effort, integrity, and vision, thinking that small concessions are harmless. But these small concessions accumulate over time, shaping a reality far smaller than their true capability. Standards are not just rules you follow, they are a declaration of who you are. When you raise your standards, your behavior automatically follows. You no longer negotiate with mediocrity. You no longer settle for convenience or ease. Instead, you demand excellence from yourself in ways that feel uncomfortable at first. This discomfort is the price of transformation, and it is temporary. What lasts is the identity you build through repeated adherence to higher standards. People often chase goals while ignoring the underlying standards that produce those goals. They set targets, make plans, and imagine results, but they fail to notice the invisible rules guiding their actions. Without higher standards, the path to any meaningful goal is riddled with compromises, distractions, and excuses. You don't rise to meet a goal. You fall to meet the standard you accept along the way. Your results are only as high as the standards you hold yourself to. One of the challenges is that raising standards is uncomfortable. It feels restrictive. It demands accountability, discipline, and effort. It forces you to say no to things you have been saying yes to for years. It makes life feel harder at first, but discomfort is temporary and its rewards are permanent. The moment you adopt a higher standard, you begin to reshape the way you interact with the world. You start noticing opportunities, relationships, and situations differently because your lens has changed. What once seemed acceptable no longer is. What once felt optional now feels mandatory. Low standards create habits that reinforce weakness. Excuses become routine. Laziness becomes habitual. Shortcuts become the norm. Every time you tolerate something beneath your potential, you are making a quiet agreement with failure. Over time, these agreements accumulate, and you find yourself living a life far removed from your possibilities. It doesn't happen overnight, but it happens relentlessly. The compound effect of tolerating low standards is devastating. High standards, on the other hand, compound in your favor. Every day you uphold them, you build confidence, skill, and resilience. Every action aligned with your standards strengthens your self-respect. You become the type of person who doesn't need motivation to act. Your identity drives your behavior. Challenges that once seemed insurmountable now feel manageable because you have conditioned yourself to operate above average. You no longer measure success by immediate results, but by consistent adherence to principles that guarantee growth. Raising your standards also changes the environment around you. People respond to the energy and expectations you project. When your standards are high, you attract others who match them. When your standards are low, you attract mediocrity. Your network, your opportunities, and your reputation are reflections of the level you demand from yourself. Change begins internally, but it radiates externally. By setting higher standards, you not only upgrade your life, you upgrade the world you interact with. Ultimately, the life you want cannot be achieved by occasional effort or wishful thinking. It requires consistent alignment with standards that demand more of you than you have been giving. The most important decision you can make today is to no longer tolerate anything less than what you are capable of achieving. When you raise your standards, action becomes automatic, focus becomes natural, and results become inevitable. The quality of your life is the direct result of the standards you choose to uphold, and those standards are entirely within your control. Motivation is fleeting. It comes in bursts and disappears just as quickly. One day you feel inspired, energized, and ready to take on the world. The next day, the same task that seemed easy now feels impossible. Relying on motivation alone is a trap because it is unreliable and inconsistent. The people who achieve lasting success don't wait to feel motivated. They act regardless of how they feel. What sustains them is identity, not emotion. Identity drives behavior in a way that motivation never can. Your identity is the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you are capable of. It dictates your choices, your habits, and ultimately your results. When you identify as a person who acts, procrastination loses power. When you identify as disciplined, excuses become foreign. When you identify as resilient, obstacles become temporary challenges rather than permanent roadblocks. Motivation may ignite the first spark, but identity keeps the fire burning consistently over time. Most people make the mistake of thinking results create identity. They believe that once they achieve a goal, they will finally become the person they aspire to be. But the truth is the opposite. Identity creates results. The person who believes they are capable of excellence behaves differently. Their habits, decisions, and priorities align with that identity, producing outcomes that match their self-perception. Without this foundation, even the most disciplined plans crumble at the first sign of resistance. Building identity requires repetition and alignment between who you say you are and what you actually do. Every action that reinforces your desired identity strengthens it. Every action that contradicts it weakens it. If you say you are a person who finishes what they start but habitually quit, your identity erodes over time. Conversely, if you consistently take action in alignment with your values and goals, your identity solidifies and results follow naturally. This is why behavior without a strong sense of identity is temporary, while identity-driven action is enduring. Emotions are unreliable because they fluctuate based on circumstances outside your control. You cannot control how motivated, confident, or inspired you will feel on any given day. Identity, however, is internal and stable. When your behavior is governed by who you believe you are, external circumstances have less power over your choices. You don't wait to feel like acting. You act because it is who you are. This shift is subtle but profound. It removes dependence on fleeting feelings and anchors your progress in something unshakable. One of the biggest challenges in building identity is consistency. Early on, acting in alignment with a new identity feels unnatural. You may feel resistance, doubt, or discomfort. That is normal. Identity is reshaped gradually through repeated behavior. Each choice to act in accordance with the person you want to become strengthens that identity and weakens the old one. Over time, what once felt forced becomes effortless. You no longer question your actions. They are automatic extensions of your self-concept. Another key aspect is clarity. You cannot become someone vague or undefined. Identity must be specific and deliberate. You must decide not only who you want to be, but also what behaviors define that person. Are you disciplined or undisciplined? Are you proactive or reactive? Are you someone who takes risks or someone who avoids them? Defining these characteristics allows your actions to align and solidify your desired self-image. Finally, identity-driven action compounds over time. Small, consistent behaviors, repeated daily, produce exponential results. Motivation may spark a momentary breakthrough, but identity sustains progress, shapes habits, and ensures long-term growth. Your results are not determined by luck, talent, or fleeting motivation. They are determined by the identity you adopt and the actions you take to reinforce it. Once your identity is strong, success becomes inevitable because your behavior naturally follows the person you have chosen to become. 5 years from now, your life will be the result of the choices you make today. Every habit, every decision, every action or inaction compounds over time to create the reality you will live in. Most people underestimate this principle because they focus on short-term comfort rather than long-term impact. They assume that delay is harmless and that tomorrow will provide more opportunity than today. But the truth is, the future is being written by what you do or don't do right now. Every moment of hesitation adds another page to a story you may later regret. Regret is not usually caused by failure. People rarely look back and wish they had failed more often. Regret comes from inaction, from opportunities ignored and potential unfulfilled. It comes from knowing what should have been done, but choosing convenience instead. When you postpone action today, you are not merely delaying results. You are creating a lifetime of what-ifs that accumulate silently until they overwhelm you. The cost of inaction is never zero. It is simply deferred until it is too late. Time does not wait. Every day that passes without decisive action is a day you cannot get back. Skills not learned, habits not formed, connections not made, and risks not taken are opportunities permanently lost. The longer you wait, the steeper the climb becomes. The difference between someone who acts now and someone who waits is not luck or innate talent. It is the compound effect of repeated decisions aligned with growth versus repeated decisions aligned with comfort. Momentum compounds both ways. Action builds momentum, while delay entrenches stagnation. Future regret is intensified because it is tied to self-perception. You are capable of more than you give yourself credit for, but when you consistently avoid acting, you begin to question your own abilities. Self-doubt grows. Confidence erodes. The voice in your head that encourages procrastination becomes louder, convincing you that you are not ready, not capable, or not worthy. And when that voice dominates, opportunities pass, and the weight of regret grows heavier. Regret is rarely sudden. It is the result of months or years of ignored responsibility. The most insidious part of future regret is that it can feel avoidable while it is forming. You might think, I'll get to it tomorrow, or I need one more day to prepare. These are lies comfort tells to protect you from immediate discomfort. The problem is, tomorrow rarely comes as planned. The day you postpone is not guaranteed, and circumstances will not always align. Life moves forward with or without your readiness. You can choose to shape it, or you can let it shape you, often in ways you won't like. Action creates clarity and confidence. Every step taken, no matter how small, provides feedback that refines your decisions and strengthens your resolve. Waiting creates confusion and fear. Inaction makes obstacles appear larger than they are and magnifies self-doubt. The moment you decide to act, you break the cycle. You begin to shape the future instead of letting it shape you. Momentum starts, and what once seemed overwhelming becomes manageable because the first step was taken. The cost of delaying action is measured not just in missed opportunities, but in the slow erosion of potential. Skills not developed, relationships not nurtured, and ideas not executed are permanent losses. Time spent waiting is a tax on your future self, a debt that must eventually be paid. Some debts can never be repaid, no matter how hard you try later. The longer you postpone, the harder it becomes to recover, and the more intense the regret when you realize what could have been. To avoid future regret, you must act today. Not when conditions are perfect, not when you feel fully prepared, but now. Decisions made in action shape your identity and reinforce your capacity to achieve. They create momentum that carries you forward and compounds into measurable results. The life you dream of exists on the other side of decisive, consistent action. Delay may feel safe, but it is quietly eroding your potential. The longer you wait, the heavier the burden of regret becomes, and the more difficult it is to recover. Every day you postpone, you write the story of your future. Make it one you will be proud to read. You can act now or live with regret forever. Today is the only time you truly control. Don't waste it. Choose action, choose growth, choose a life worth living. Do this now, or watch your future slip through your hands.